A place of unimaginable wealth, silent streets, and rules you must never break. This is Brunei. Fuel is extremely cheap. Healthcare is free. And yet, it's also one of the strictest places on earth. And nothing about it is what you expect. The truth about one of the richest nations on earth. Tucked quietly on the northern fringes of the island of Borneo, surrounded by the lush rainforests of Malaysia and the South China Sea, lies Brunei, Darussalam. It is a nation of striking contrasts. A tiny enclave that occupies less than 1% of the island's landmass, yet commands a disproportionate amount of global attention due to its immense economic weight. At the center of this nation is Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah, one of the world's longest reigning and most powerful absolute monarchs. Since ascending the throne in 1967, his rule has been defined by a fusion of traditional Malay culture and strict Islamic values, creating a society that is as socially conservative as it is technologically modern. His residence, the Istana in Nurul Aman, stands as a physical manifestation of this power, holding the title of the world's largest residential palace. However, the true engine of Brunei's distinction is not found in the halls of the palace, but deep beneath the ocean floor. The nation sits atop vast reserves of oil and natural gas, a geological winning lottery ticket that has transformed it into one of the wealthiest countries per capita on Earth. This black gold has allowed the government to establish a unique social contract with its approximately 450,000 citizens, a system often referred to as a welfare state. In Brunei, the standard of living is cushioned by a safety net that sounds like a fantasy to the average global taxpayer. There is no personal income tax, meaning workers keep exactly what they earn. The government provides high-quality healthcare and education at virtually no cost to the citizen. Housing is heavily subsidized to ensure that homelessness is nearly non-existent, and fuel prices are kept artificially low, making the cost of commuting negligible. On paper, this creates the image of a frictionless utopia where the stresses of modern survival are erased by state benevolence. But reality is always more complex, a country of quiet luxury. The capital, Bandar Seri Begawan, does not merely exist. It breathes with a profound, almost eerie stillness that defies the frantic pulse of the modern world. In a region of the globe defined by the sweltering chaos of street food stalls, tangled power lines, and the relentless roar of motorbikes, Bandar Seri Begawan is a startling anomaly. There is no urban cacophony here. No suffocating crowds push through the streets, and no sirens pierce the air. Instead, the city moves with a curated, cinematic grace. Everything is impeccably manicured, sterilized of grit, and held in a state of perpetual, tranquil control. It is a city that feels less like a metropolitan hub and more like a high-end sanctuary where the volume of life has been turned down to a whisper. And then, breaking the horizon of this quietude, you see the gold. It is not a subtle accent, but a blinding statement of divine and earthly power. The Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddien Mosque rises from its own man-made lagoon like a celestial mirage. Its main dome, covered in pure 24-karat gold, acts as a literal beacon, shimmering with an intensity that seems to vibrate under the tropical sun. It is surrounded by marble columns imported from Italy, stained glass from England, and a stone replica of a 16th-century royal barge floating in the water. A sight so pristine and symmetrical, it feels less like a building and more like a fever dream of architectural perfection. Yet, even this masterpiece is eclipsed by the sheer, staggering scale of what lies just beyond the city center, the Istana Nurul Aman. This is not just a home. It is the absolute apex of residential opulence on the planet. As the largest palace in the world, it dwarfs even the Vatican and Versailles. Its statistics read like a work of fiction. 1,788 rooms, 257 bathrooms, a banquet hall that can accommodate 5,000 guests, and an air-conditioned stable for 200 polo ponies. Number 3. The strict laws you must never ignore. This is the precise point where the Bruneian narrative pivots from a story of immense wealth to one of rigid, uncompromising social order. Unlike its neighbors in Southeast Asia, which often thrive on a culture of vibrant spontaneity and permissive tourism. Brunei operates under a strict, comprehensive interpretation of Islamic law known as the Sharia Penal Code. This legal framework isn't just a set of guidelines. It is the definitive boundary of public and private life, creating an environment where the moral compass of the state is absolute. In this kingdom, behaviors that are considered mundane or personal choices in the West are not only discouraged but are strictly, legally forbidden. The most immediate cultural shock for any traveler is the total absence of a public nightlife or social drinking culture. Public alcohol consumption is completely banned, and the sale of spirits and beer is non-existent within the country's borders. There are no bars, no clubs, and no boisterous late-night gatherings. This prohibition extends into the very fiber of social interaction, directing the energy of a nation toward family and faith rather than the hedonism often found in global capitals. Furthermore, laws regarding morality and personal relationships are enforced with a level of seriousness that can feel jarring. Regulations concerning khalwat, or close proximity between unmarried members of the opposite sex, and strict restrictions on certain types of relationships mean that the private lives of individuals are subject to the scrutiny of the state's moral guardians. This is not a landscape where one can move through the world with the casual indifference of a global citizen. In Brunei, you do not act freely without thinking. Every public gesture, every choice of dress, and every social interaction is weighed against the heavy backdrop of religious and traditional expectations. Everything is meticulously structured, and every facet of life is carefully controlled. Number 4, life for ordinary citizens. To live in Brunei is to exist within one of the world's most comprehensive social safety nets, a reality that offers a level of material peace few other nations can replicate. For the average citizen, the stresses of the modern global economy are largely buffered by the state's immense black gold reserves. Life is defined by a sense of profound predictability. Children attend schools where education is a right, not a debt-inducing privilege. Families reside in subsidized housing that ensures shelter is never a source of desperation. And medical care is world-class and virtually free. Even the daily cost of living remains decoupled from global inflation, with the government maintaining strict subsidies on essential commodities like rice and fuel, keeping the price at the pump among the lowest on the planet. It is a life of cradle-to-grave comfort, where the basic anxieties of survival have been engineered out of existence. However, this gilded stability carries a quiet,